This will be probably a quicker video because I am hungry and I'm meeting up with some ex-coworkers tonight. But, so as of this week, I no longer work for Neiman Marcus. I'm not getting into the details of the bankruptcy. This is actually just purely a video about, like, job interview process. I assisted with one of my friends about it, but since I've been doing that already for a few of my past luxury jobs. So for getting into the process of Neiman Marcus, I know it's hard to believe because I'm in Gato makeup right now, but I do dress normally for work. Um, Business casual, school appropriate, natural color hair, no dramatic makeup. Um, like you can have glam, but it still has to be like work appropriate. But we'll get back into that a bit later. Um, what I was telling my friend, and what I would tell y'all if you're trying to get into like that luxury setting, it's not required to have literal luxury experience, but it is heavily helpful, and at least have some degree of background in retail or customer servicing, one or the other. It helps to have both. It's typical, at least in my experience and the experience of others, it is a 2-round interview with 2 different managers. Um, that's not necessarily straight across the board, but expect to speak with 2 different managers. Um, Heavy emphasis on problem solving skills and what you do as far as like outreach to a client. Outreach, say it's slower, because one of the locations that I'm familiar with is a little bit of a slower location. Um, what do you do in that setting? How do you problem solve? Are you able to wardrobe? Wardrobe is dressing from head to toe, is what I like to describe it as. Basically, cross selling. Can you sell in other departments? Do you know how to speak about other products in other departments? Do you go above and beyond to learn about other products in other departments? Um, Emphasis on curiosity. If you're in Texas, I would emphasize history, learning the history of the brand. I'm not going to necessarily say that is a requirement, especially if you're in another location that is not in Texas. But in Texas, it helps to mention history and the importance of fashion. And, I will never say, oh, yeah, just say, oh, I love fashion. So do most people. Emphasize the key aspects of why you want to work in fashion. What is your love within fashion? Because you could love different aspects of fashion. How do you approach problem solving? How do you approach clienteling? How do you build relationships with customers, with coworkers? How do you mitigate, problems that you cannot solve? Items that we do not have, how do you do any of that? How do you manage? How do you juggle? How do you navigate? Because the company is rebuilding itself, it comes with, some hitches. How do you navigate in those settings? How do you customer service? That is so, so huge because it is luxury. So you have to be able to go above and beyond. You have to be able to, I'm not going to say break some rules, but pull some strings, maybe, every once in a while. At least when I say pull some strings, that doesn't necessarily mean doing something you're not supposed to, but maybe inconveniencing yourself a little bit more. Or talking with, like, say, one time I helped a client last minute. She wanted a gift wrapping. Gift wrapping is typically a 30-minute process, and she was asking within the last 15 minutes. I spoke to the OST manager. He went ahead and approved it, and not only approved it, he helped with it himself. And like LP were about to close the front doors. I told them, I was able to get them to let me hold off before, locking the front doors, so that way she can still get out to her car. Not something we can do all the time, But situationally, every once in a while, it was a slower day, I was allotted, you know, that. That's going above and beyond. That is technically holding yourself back, but within reason, you know, and that was a over $500 sale for me. And just stuff like that. Like, are you able to think on your feet? Think on the fly? Are you able to recommend a different product to a customer that's super adamant about one specific thing? Because that's a 50-50 chance that's going to work. But if you're sure and it's similar enough, sometimes you can introduce them to a brand new product. I've had clients come in. Oh, I was looking, what was it, one time I had a client, she was dead set on Loewe sunglasses. She ended up going out with a pair of, what was it, it was Gucci. She came in for Loewe, she left with Gucci and a pair of Pradas. Like, sometimes you have to be able to, star method. I can't remember the exact word of, or what, the anagram means, but the star method is essentially problem solving. A situation happening, how'd you address it? What was the actions? How was it resolved? I would research star because for some reason I'm blanking out, but I'm also extremely hungry right now. And how you conduct yourself during the interview and in that setting is a major, major thing. I'm very lax in my personal life. However, posture, body language is so, so important. Learning how to read body language. I'm autistic. I'm so autistic. Very autistic. I've also casually studied psychology for the better part of 15 years. I haven't taken a college course, but I've researched psychology so I could understand and how to read people. That plays heavily into how I operate in work settings. Learning a little bit of psychology, learning to read customer body language. If a customer is unsure, if they're looking for something, if they're pondering a bit too long, their facial expressions, having an understanding of psychology, and honestly, being a therapist sometimes in luxury settings. But being able to build relationships, understanding every individual customer's need. Those are all very important skills to highlight on. Even if it's not literal retail, being able to build relationships and emphasize on that. Being able to problem solve, emphasize on that. Being able to upsell, extremely emphasize on that. Being able to learn different departments and cross-sell, also heavy emphasis on that. Being able to even understand a little bit of color theory to the skin. Because you do not want to give someone who looks better in cool tone something that's the wrong color tone and then watch them hate it later. Because I will not sell something I don't believe in, because I would rather make a sell and it be guaranteed or set, or that's the person, that's what they want, versus convincing a client, oh, you need this, and then them hating it or their family disapproving of it and then them returning it. I'm going to sell them something I honestly believe in for them. And I will tell them, no, I do not think that would work for you. I'm not going to lie to my clients. If that's a terrible sales tactic and I stand by that opinion, I'm not going to tell them, yes, buy all these things, especially when I can tell they have maybe some self-security issues. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to tell them, I don't think that's going to work for you. Or I think maybe this needs to be paired with that in order for it to work. Or I think maybe the color tone is off a little bit, or it's washing you out, or it's doing this or that. And you have to be secure on selling yourself. So taking all of that is kind of what I did. So during my actual interview process, I talked about history. I talk about, I've been in fashion for very long. I have experience with delegation of tasks. I can take initiative. I don't sit and wait for someone to tell me something. If I see a project or a hypothetical project, I will go ahead and I will maybe confirm details, but I will get started on it. I don't sit around. I will do outreach. I will text clients. Or if I have the tools, or if I don't have the tools, I'll go and ask a coworker, hey, what was the reference? What was the information that we needed to talk to our clients about? You know, being able to take initiative and anticipate needs. Those are all such important points to highlight whenever you're speaking in a luxury space like Neiman Marcus. And so I hope this video was relatively informative because I am starving now. Side note, I did a splurge today for myself because I have a new job. And maybe I'll do a fashion haul later. I don't know. But, bye.